is going to be recorded primarily for Northern Forum members and for the ones who had to miss it due to time difference. We will send you a link of the recording right after the meeting. I would like to now pass the word to Vladimir Vasilyev for more introductions and for mainly and mostly important, introducing our speakers. Here you go.
Да, спасибо, Кристина. Добрый день, добрый вечер, доброе утро, дорогие друзья.
Thank you very much, Christina. Hello, everybody, dear colleagues and dear friends, and thank you very much for joining us today. And I'm very happy that there are quite a lot of people today, and we have very good speakers. My name is Vladimir Vasilyev. I'm an acting executive director of the Northern Forum. This is an international organization of northern regions that brings together 13 regions from 5 countries. And with our new business partner from Alaska, with Ms. Kristina Байбородова, we have decided to launch a series of Zoom calls, monthly Zoom calls on various topics related to the development of business cooperation in the Arctic and the North. I'm sure that this topic will be relevant to all of us. Within the Northern Forum, we would like to establish business cooperation and to move from speaking to doing and to implement some specific projects. And we understand that in the future, in the nearest future, in May, Russia is going to become a chair of the Arctic Council, and the Northern Forum will partner the Arctic Council. We were offered to organize Arctic Resilience Forum and the Arctic Energy Summit. And from the Russian Foreign Ministry, we had a proposal to organize a youth startup forum and the first conference of the Chambers of Commerce of Arctic regions. So we have quite a lot of events to be arranged, and we would like to consult with as many experts as possible to find the best solutions, to prepare for these events and to develop these projects, and to assist our regions and regional administrations and governments. So not to waste our time, today we have such speakers as Mr. Alexander Pilyasov, the Doctor of Geography, Director General of the Institute of Regional Consulting in Moscow, one of the leading and most outstanding development of the Arctic, of the global Arctic, and he's going to be our keynote speaker. Then we have the director of the Arctic portal from Iceland, Halldor Johansson. He will tell us about the information resources available in the Arctic and what Arctic portal can provide together with the Northern Forum in terms of information technologies. The Arctic portal maintains the website of the Northern Forum, and we are seeking for new opportunities for the development of business cooperation. My deputy, Ms. Daryana Maximova, who is also an associate professor at the Northeastern Federal University and a senior researcher of the US and Canada Institute. She will tell us about the investment opportunities in the Arctic. This is a sort of supplement to the presentation of Mr. Pilyasov. And she will supplement Halldor's presentation. We also have a young employee who has just joined our team at the Secretariat, Ms. Taisia Tarabukina. I asked her to tell about how she became a businesswoman in Yakutia, what are the complications and challenges and how she tackles with them, because she's a businesswoman, so we will learn a personal experience from her, how this is done. I think that it will be interesting to all of us. Unfortunately, Paul Foos from Alaska has not joined our call yet. I would very much like him to tell us about the Arctic Economic Council, but if he does join, then he will tell, of course. I'm speaking in Russian because I am recording for our YouTube channel in Russian, and then Dariana is recording in English. So, Mr. Pilyasov, please take the floor. We are all ears. Thank you, Vladimir Nikolaevich, for the invitation. I can see a lot of friends, which is very nice to be among the people who are dedicated to the Arctic and the North in different countries, in Russia and not only in Russia. And I would like to inform you about the Arctic entrepreneurship using two major sources. I have just published a book that I have been working on since 1990s on the Arctic entrepreneurship. And on February 20, we had an online conference on Arctic entrepreneurship of Russia, where we gathered business authorities, experts, businessmen. And it was attended by Mr. Krutikov, who for 2 years has been responsible for the development of the Arctic in the Russian federal government. He spoke at this conference. And at the conference today, I have prepared a short presentation, and I would like to show it to you. So, dear colleagues, can you see my presentation? Yes, we can see it very well. It is important for our international partners that in the year 2020, the zone of the Arctic has grown, resulting from a number of federal laws on investment measures to attract large-scale and small-scale investors in the Arctic. It was decided to expand our Arctic zone with some districts of Komi, Arkhangelsk, and Karelia. So on this map, we have tried to show the territory of the new Russian Arctic, where the same measures for the support of businessmen and entrepreneurship will be in place. You can see that these territories are growing, and thus the opportunities for attracting and finding interesting projects are becoming more ample. And on the right, you can see my book that I have been working on since 1990s. And the idea is that there are some similar features of the Arctic entrepreneurship. So what are these features? What is similar between Arctic businessmen and polar bears? So no more intrigue. Just to tell you that one of the similarities is that a businessman in the Arctic is destined, he has to be mobile in search of new markets and new opportunities. They have to keep moving. Unlike the businessmen in the mainland. So this is what is similar between Arctic businessmen and a polar bear. They have to keep searching for markets and opportunities. And secondly, it is that there are quite a few of them, and they are quite lonely. For example, per capita, in some tables, you will see that the number of businessmen in the Arctic is lower than in the mainland of Russia or other global regions. And this results from the challenges and some barriers that the Arctic businessmen are facing. So here you can see the specific features of Arctic entrepreneurship: climate, infrastructure, and institutions. On the other hand, Arctic businessmen are quite often local monopolies, and I will never forget how in Yamal I asked businessmen who worked as Ded Moroz, as a Santa Claus during the Christmas period. And he said that as long as he was the only one in this settlement, so during the holiday season, he gets so much income that he can live on it for the whole year. And I also remember some questions that I asked in Yamal. What would you lose if you went to live in Moscow, for example, from the Arctic? And they said unanimously, we would lose our monopoly, because here we are local monopolists in rendering our services and in selling our goods. And we would definitely lose this monopoly in this high competitive environment of Moscow, St. Petersburg, and other Russian cities. And I would say that this local monopoly is what holds the businessmen afloat and helps them to exist and to receive their profit. What else have I learned? That there are two types of Arctic businessmen. There are businessmen who fully rely on themselves. I call them frontier, self-sufficient. These businessmen. So these businessmen are similar to those in Moscow and in St. Petersburg. They depend on some state support, and they adopt to some state support programs. So these are the two faces of Arctic entrepreneurship. And another important thing for partnerships and foreign investments, that in Russian Arctic there are two types of Russia. There are these regions with some limited periods of carrying cargoes, and it is more complicated to do business there. But on the other hand, there you can become a local monopoly faster. So this is a triple Arctic. But there are also some regions that are quite similar to Russian mainland, where they have motorways, railways, and they have some competitors from Moscow and St. Petersburg. So this is a more sort of comfortable Arctic, but on the other hand, for a businessman, it is a more competitive Arctic. Another important issue that Arctic businessmen often search for contracts with large-scale Russian companies. I call it a partnership of David and Goliath. You remember that David and Goliath are very different in sizes, economic entities. So when small business contracts with large business, it's a sort of David and Goliath. So let's move on and remember the presentation of Alexander Krutikov at our conference with a great experience of supporting businessmen. He told us about the principles of development of entrepreneurship from the point of view on Russian federal government. For 2 years, he was responsible for the development of the Arctic and the Ministry for the Arctic and Far East Development. And he spoke at our conference, and that's what he said, that there are two principles for the development of entrepreneurship in the Arctic that are very, very peculiar. The first one is non-worsening of conditions of work in the extreme north. So the state, the authorities have to do everything possible for the Arctic conditions to be just as good as those in the mainland. Then secondly, they have to understand that in the Arctic, business is has a very important social role, which is not typical, for example, for Moscow or St. Petersburg. And of course, a state has to play a key role in the development of business and entrepreneurship in the Arctic. And the last one is indigenous entrepreneurship. This is a very, very special direction that has to be paid attention to and supported and recognize the specificity and the traditions. We can call it, for example, ethnic business of, for example, reindeer herders and hunters and fishermen from indigenous population. And Krutikov recognized that this is a very special case of Arctic business. And specifically, he gave the latest numbers from the development of Russian business. So not to tire you, I will show you these figures briefly. So the most important reserve and resource for the development of business in the Arctic is the procedures of state and municipal procurements. These are the volumes of deliveries that is conducted by the state, when the state looks for the contractors to render these services. So this volume made about 1.5 trillion rubles, which is billions of rubles, and half of those procurements were rendered by the small and medium businesses. And the half of the half, so 1/4 of all these amount of money, they were delivered to the local businessmen. So we can say that 1/4 of all procurement of the Russian state was given to local businessmen. Of course, the task is that this share of local businessmen of the Arctic and the North in the municipal procurement would be higher. So he is saying that it is about 454,000 of businessmen from the Arctic and the North are taking part in all these procurement procedures. Unfortunately, the share has been decreasing lately. So we aim to establish some new state benefits, for example, 15 rise in the price of a contract for Arctic businessmen, so that they are entitled to implement their contracts at the price of 15% higher. And this benefit is relevant for the Arctic and the North. Why am I saying this? I want you to understand that in the nearest future, the attention of our state and authorities will be growing, the attention to the development of the Arctic business. This is a very objective process, and it is already in place. And if you're thinking about partnering with the Arctic businessmen, then you can be confident that the general trend is aimed at supporting business and businessmen in the Arctic. Here I again briefly tell you about the peculiarities of Arctic business, but I will not speak in details. They include mobility and power supply, which is very expensive in the Arctic. Then the issues of independence from some resource deposits. Here you can see the facts that coincide with the task from my book, that Arctic business is a very special type of business, which is very different from Moscow and St. Petersburg. And they have to be treated in a special way and to recognize their specificity. So these tables that you can see, they just prove these peculiarities. And some more slides. These figures are from 2015 in the business in Russia and in the Arctic. And you see that if we look at the employment, then in Russia, it was a quarter of population, and in the Arctic it has always been lower, and it proves the fact that I have mentioned, that in the Arctic there are fewer businessmen than in the mainland. So this table compares the entire Russia and the Arctic zone. So it's not easy to be a businessman in the Arctic, and that is why there are fewer businessmen than in the mainland. So now let's see where they are, these Arctic businessmen, in what types of activity. Again, we can see some differences with the mainland Russia. Here we have less trade businessmen, like restaurants or other services. But we have more of them in transport, communication, construction. So the Arctic businessman is like a more manufacturing businessman. These numbers are higher than in Russia. If we compare, for example, large Tyumen Oblast, the south of Tyumen, Khanty-Mansiysk and Yamal, we will again see that the more to the Arctic we go, the more they are occupied in rendering services, construction, and less in trade. So we can see this trend that Arctic businessmen are like more manufacturers than in the south. Back to this information. This is a share of construction companies. On the top you can see Yamal. In Yamal they have the most number of construction companies in the total amount of small businesses. And in the Russian Federation, down there you can see the figures are much lower. So the conclusion is again the same. Arctic businessman is a manufacturer. And if I look at some telephone directories of Arctic regions, I have defined a special type of businessmen in the Arctic. They include those who produce off-road vehicles and other transportation. So those who are engaged in this off-road transportation production, they are very, again, popular in Russia. Also those that are engaged in producing some hunting facilities and fishing devices. And then again, energy service in the form of energy audit or portable power supply. So these businessmen are very specific for the Arctic. In the Arctic, they demonstrate their Arctic specialty in a full scale. Here you can see the types of services that are rendered in the Arctic, like again, oil service, geological survey, transportation. These are sort of Arctic services, and we have businessmen in the Arctic who render these services. And of course, there are businessmen who would render the same services in Moscow and in Yamal, like computer modeling, because they are intellectual services, but they have no specific Arctic features. We have conducted a survey among the nomadic businessmen in Yamal tundra, and we have concluded that in order to be a sustainable businessman, you have to have information about climates, pastures, and we have found out that the most significant source of information for nomadic reindeer herders businessmen is the opinion of the people from their camps. So the role of partners and neighbors and other nomadic businessmen is very, very important. So the small business of the Arctic always exists in this very close communication with neighbors and other businessmen from whom they get information about market conditions and weather, etc. I'm coming to the conclusion. These are the results of survey and the opinion of our respondents, and the opinion was, of course, is that they support the model of business in Yamal, and most of them wouldn't like to get back to some state companies. They would like to stay businessmen. And in the conclusion, my final slides, I would like to say, dear colleagues, Russian and foreign colleagues, that the most important conclusion from researching this business in the Arctic, I would like to say that the features of usual business, they don't work in the Arctic. For example, local monopoly is a benefit, is a good for the Arctic businessman, not competition. And competition is quite often a destroying feature, and monopoly is good. Then do they need competitiveness? No, they said they don't need it. They said that they did business to help their community to feel needed, to provide for themselves and for their communities. So very often the motives were not economic for being a businessman, which again doesn't agree with the mainland principles. And of course, and it is now recognized by the federal government of Russia, we cannot use our usual state support measures in the Arctic. We need some special measures of support for the Arctic. And if you are thinking about partnering with the businessmen in Russian Arctic, then you should clearly understand that in the nearest future, the state support to the Russian Arctic businessmen is going to grow. It is going to grow. Of course, we're talking about the support of mobility from our state, because mobility is life for the Arctic businessmen, because this is the source of sustainability for them. And some final slides is the support of bringing cargoes for the businessmen. And in our Arctic regions that we have been analyzing, like Nenets and Yamal, these measures of support have already been developed. For example, they help them to reach the external markets and power supply, and to develop some new economic sites, and to providing equipment to some indigenous economic sites, and providing the states of the measures of state support to the indigenous businessmen in several Arctic regions. It is obvious that these measures of support, they are sometimes not specific for the Arctic, and our priorities and our call for the federal government is to strengthen the specificity of supporting measures for the Arctic business, to recognize that it is special, and to implement it in specially designed Arctic measures of support. So in this table, you can see how these standard measures of support can be changed into the Arctic measures of support. So here you can see some concrete directions of work on how to make this support specific for the Arctic. And I have to say that Arctic business is a very special case of Russian business. And there are two types in the regions with some limited time frame for the deliveries of some cargoes, with the most difficult and most harsh conditions for doing business, and in the regions that do have transport communication with the mainland. But here they have higher competition, of course, and here they cannot maintain their monopoly that they like and need so much, and that helps them to be sustainable in the remote Arctic. And I have to say that, of course, Russian Arctic is very, very diverse. And there you can identify some regions that are closer to the mainland Russia, like Murmansk, for example, or the regions that are specifically Arctic that I have been talking about. For example, the Arctic of Yakutia, Chukotka, Krasnoyarsk Krai, Taimyr, and Evenkia. So these are totally different conditions for doing business in the Arctic that exist. And coming to the conclusion, I can say that I meet hundreds of businessmen, and I have understood that what helps them is their a very special culture of optimism. Optimism in spite of all barriers and challenges, and the optimism of serving their local communities and the Arctic that they manifest in their activities. Thank you very much for your attention.
Да, спасибо большое, Александр Николаевич.
Thank you, Alexander, very much.
Интересно.
Very informative as always. And with quite unexpected conclusions. So it was interesting to know that monopoly is actually better than competition in the Arctic. So it gives some food for thought. So we are going to have time for discussion. So we have reserved 2 hours for today's meeting, but if discussion is going to be longer, we will prolong our meeting. So we have enough time to listen to all the presentations. So our friends from Tixi have asked us to show their short video on their vision of the future of their settlement, but we will do that at the end. So now I'm glad to give the floor to our friend from Iceland, to Haldur Johansson, Active Portal Director.
Thank you, Vladimir. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. It's a complex world we live in, and thank you, Alexander, for your incredibly good presentation. I've learned a lot about the Russian Arctic by listening to your presentation. I am somewhat of a businessman myself, so I wake up very optimistic today, and I agree with you that optimism, of course, is the key. I put together a few slides, and I would like to share them with you, and let's hope that it works for me properly. And then I'll put it on slideshow, and I hope this is all working.
Yes, everything okay.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Well, I've had the pleasure of working with the Northern Forum for considerable time, and I agree with Alexander, of course, that support is very needed, and I know that from my own activities for a few decades now. The stability that we live in is often very difficult, and it can be quite detrimental to the work we're trying to do. So stability is, of course, very important, and being able to think long term is another thing. I want to tell you just quickly about some of the work that I have been doing and what I've been trying to do, because the Arctic, again, is very complex, and I reside in northern Iceland, and I've had the pleasure of traveling a lot around the Arctic, and I've seen the differences, and though we are similar, we still have our different issues to deal with. This period now with COVID has, of course, proven a lot of what Alexander has been presenting about the activities in Russia, and that we certainly need stability, and we need have state support. But I still wonder, though, how we can combine the two. And I'll tell you quickly about the Arctic portal, and we are dealing in both data and information outreach. And we have been, since we were actually welcomed in the ministerial declaration in Salikarp in 2006, so we've been working on outreach for more than 15 years now, on day-to-day basis, with information that is supporting life and science and business. Our maps have been very important. Another thing that we have done over the years is to support different organizations like the Northern Forum with their presentation and outreach. And of course, when we started, it was more difficult than it is today. But it's still very important to present your information in such a way that people understand, and it can be found in the sea of information that you find on the internet. And we support associations like APEX, SEON, Sustaining Arctic Observation Networks, the International Arctic Science Committee, and the International Permafrost Association, the Center for Interhusbandry, and many, many more. So quite complex. And we also support the Arctic Yearbook, which is important, the Arctic Renewable Energy Atlas. And so there's a lot of activities that we are supporting as a network. And I hope that this will also strengthen the Northern Forum. So what is it that makes the Arctic so interesting to many of the others also? That's also important for us, because I can see online that we have people from, for example, from China, I can see. It's definitely an area of opportunities and threats. We know that. We know that we have the people and the societies, we have diverse communities. We have, in a way, diverse governance too. We have the Arctic Council though, but the Arctic Council is more sort of allow me to say it, more like a social club in a way, because it doesn't have the funding mechanisms that we need from our own governments. But we have all the resources, we have the shipping opportunities. Tourism has been increasing a lot. I can see that, for example, in a country like Iceland. We have a population of less than 400,000 people, and before COVID, the tourism was up to 2.5 million. So you can just imagine the impact on the societies, on the economy when you have such numbers. And I think that's something to be expected in other parts of the Arctic, that tourism will increase a lot. We know there's climate change, and we have issues to deal with in terms of climate change. And then, of course, because of increased activity, etc., there's security and response issues, meaning search and rescue, mostly response to activities. And this is, again, something we've seen in Iceland when people have been traveling in the winter time in rental cars and got stranded because of snow, etc. People that are not used to our region. So this is another aspect to be considered in the longer term. And then we have the interest from for example, the Arctic Council observer countries, China, Korea, even India, and then of course the European states. This is putting both positive and negative strain on our societies and our countries, and our governance, of course, is very affected by those issues. We can see that especially now, for example, if you follow the news in Greenland, how the outside world is affecting their politics and developments. So do we have all the knowledge, or is there a lack of knowledge? And I think we have a lot of knowledge, but we are not combining the knowledge in a way that we can use it to our advantage yet. So the Northern Forum and the chairmanship of Russia, Vladimir mentioned in the beginning that there are some activities proposed for the Northern Forum. And I think this is a very, very important period coming up for the Northern Forum. And the slogan of the Russian chairmanship, responsible governance for sustainable Arctic, it's a very strong and big slogan. And just listening to Alexander, of course, this is a very, very timely discussion, and it will be extremely interesting to follow the developments for the next 2 years. And again, it's an incredibly good opportunity for us interested in sustainable and business development to take an active part. So if you look at the Northern Forum regions, Northern Forum is already covering a lot of the Arctic, not all of it, and we're working actively on getting the other ones who are not involved yet on board, because I believe the Northern Forum has a great opportunity to discuss and promote at the regional level that is extremely well seen and needed. So we have been working on, and many of you have heard this before, an Arctic Business Portal. The main goals are to advance responsible resource, infrastructure, and economic development. And all of this is to strengthen the role of the Northern Forum in Northern Arctic and global development. And I think we are moving ahead, and we have been gaining some ground. And I'll just mention a few things at the end. But I like this diagram, and I actually put it together thinking about the activities of the chairmanship of Russia coming up. I mean, the core of everything is the people and the societies in the Arctic. And then we have important elements. We have the business and the science, but the most important one is in the beginning there, the culture and education. But all of those are interconnected, and around all of that we have policy, because it's all depending on policy. And the most important is the green circle around it. It's our environment, the setting that we live in, and how we can make sense of all of that. So we have to increase our education, and we have to be very importantly looking at education. Connectivity, I mean, we would not have this discussion if we had not connectivity, and this is becoming a vital part, and that's one of the things we learned during this COVID thing, that connectivity is basically a key to our existence nowadays. And we have to have the regional cooperation, and that's where the Northern Forum can play a very important role. We have to preserve and engage our young people especially, and again, the Northern Forum is doing a lot on youth engagement, and I think that is an extremely strong component, because with all respect, Alexander, I think things are changing, and the attitude of the businessmen that you were explaining may not apply to the next generation. I've listened to youth and young people in Saka, and there's a lot of entrepreneurship, and things are changing, I think, and that's why we have to be adaptable, and we have to listen to the young people, and we have to engage the young people in our discussions and how we move forward. And then, of course, we need project support, and that again comes to what Alexander had mentioned. We need to have the funding mechanisms, because if you want to be innovative, and you are innovative, you need to have the support to make it into big projects. And then on top of that, or around all of that, we need the information and data. We need to have the information on how to start the business, how can we communicate with other business people, etc. And if we can share these things, and as we are working on with the Northern Forum portal, I think we can support development in small, medium, and large activities. So long-term approach is also a key. Yeah, that's something I've learned in my activities. When you get funding or projects for 4 years, and then what? And then when you finally have something rolling, then the funding stops, and you're supposed to look at something new. This is something that we really need to change, and we need to find ways to think more long term. So linking all these things together, if we can, then we have something that really makes sense for all of us. Another one right there in the lower corner is another very important issue, is the Arctic image. Because Vladimir and myself, we were listening to the SAO meeting a few months ago, and the chair of the Arctic Economic Council mentioned that most of his activity over the chairmanship period that he's been sitting there has gone towards rectifying the Arctic image, the negative Arctic image. There's a lot of international companies are looking at the Arctic region as a no-no area, and they're not, well, in my opinion, it's based on lack of understanding, and a lot of negative information that's flowing around the world that does not really apply to us, and that's why we have to also be good at doing outreach. So what can we do? We have to promote and engage regional cooperation. And in that sense, I see it more circumpolar. I think we can support each other and if we can work across borders. Education, culture, science, and business, again, we need to foster that, and we need to respect and listen in both directions and link those together. And the Arctic finance part, we have to encourage innovation. We have to look at the long-term aspects of that, and then for that we need to find a way. One of the things that has been mentioned, and maybe the Northern Forum can play a key role in that, is that we need an Arctic business plan. There's no business plan available for the Arctic. And we need to be able to look at long-term and then foster some of the interest that we have, for example, from countries like China and Korea that have been showing interest in a lot of the activities, but they don't really have a channel to come in and support. So that's another thing that we can think of, how to foster such cooperation. And again, the external relations part, the Arctic image. We have opportunities, of course, looking at the Russian Arctic and linking it to the Nordic Arctic. Shipping, of course, is a very important component. And there are incredibly interesting activities on the horizon linked to the shipping and how we can connect. And that's another thing that the Northern Forum can work actively on during the chairmanship. And Vladimir mentioned activities like the Arctic Energy Summit, and well, a lot of the shipping activity, of course, in the Arctic is related to energy, as you know. So the opportunity to take such a huge topic as Arctic shipping and linking it with Arctic energy developments and renewable energy, and how all of this can support regional development, not least the indigenous people living in the Arctic, I think is a great topic for future discussions. So promote and engage regional cooperation, Arctic shipping. So to end, because I have, I think, overreached my time, what are we doing right now? We've been working on the concept and activities. This activity is one of the activities of getting people to talk together. And we are developing partnerships for that. We've been working on the Northern Forum outreach. You probably see the new logo. Northern Forum is 30 years old now, or 30 years young. And so we've been working on the website and the brand book, etc. And we are going to be very prepared when the Russian chairmanship starts. And we have already worked on system development, etc., for the business portal. And so you will see this happening more and more. And last but not least, we've been working on the sustainable financing for the Northern Forum, and I think that is, of course, the key. We need to have money to make good things happen. And I don't know if Vladimir wants to go into that in this discussion, but we are at least working in that direction, and so far so good, at least. And I think it's all going in the right direction. But the image and the cooperation, of course, is the key. I know I didn't mention maybe enough the small and medium businesses, but just in the end, from my perspective, we had the strong corporations in Northern Iceland some 20 years ago. They have now all been resolved into private businesses, and it's interesting to see how that has happened. And I'm convinced that the model that Alexander described is applicable in many regions, but I think it's also very important to think in a more, let's say, how will things move on in 20 years down the road? And very likely we'll see a very different picture by that time, because the information technology and this ability to be able to communicate as we're doing now is shaping the world in a new way. So I thank you for that, and I look forward to further discussions. Thank you very much.
Да, спасибо, Халдор. Два замечательных просто выступления.
Thank you, Haldor. Two most interesting, thought-provoking presentations, and maybe for some arguments and disputes. Yes, the world is going to change in 20 years. In 1 year, we have switched to offline communication, and we have mastered the command of many various platforms. And so the development is going to accelerate. So we are moving to our next speaker so that we have time for discussion. So Dariana Maximova is going to talk about the investment potential in the Arctic.
Большое спасибо, Владимир Николаевич. Меня слышно?
Thank you, Vladimir. Can you hear me?
Да. Ага, большое спасибо.
Thank you very much.
У нас действительно очень интересное мероприятие, которое мы собираемся проводить ежемесячно в рамках
Indeed, this is a very interesting event, which is going to be held once a month.
Я со своей стороны хотела бы больше рассказать про свою научную деятельность.
On my behalf, I would like to talk about my academic activity in the Northeastern Federal University.
С Российским советом по
We have
международным
a
делам,
project
мой личный
with the
проект,
Russian
как автора
Council
по
on
написанию рабочей тетради по инвестиции в
International Affairs. So this is a work
Соавтором
book
моим
on
является Андрей Константинович Криворотов.
investment in the Arctic. Anдрей
И мы
Криворотов
все еще
is
находимся
my
в работе, в разработке,
co-contributor.
поэтому
So we're still
наработки,
working
которые у нас
on
есть,
this
я, пожалуй, озвучу.
workbook.
На самом деле мы начинали изучать безопасность инвестиций в Арктике.
We started the security of Arctic investments.
Здесь может быть две проблемы. Проблема
So
может
there are two
рассматриваться
challenges here.
как безопасность вложений с точки зрения
So first,
инвестора
the security for the investors
и безопасность для принимающей стороны.
and the
Все
security
просто.
for the beneficiaries.
С точки зрения инвесторов речь идет
So
о
for
инвестиционном климате арктических
investors,
регионов.
so the main thing is the investment climate in the
То есть
Arctic
это
regions.
правовая, экономическая защищенность
So the
предпринимателей,
legal protection,
гарантия сохранности инвестиций и
so the
напротив,
guarantees of
сдерживание
the
инвестиционного потока.
security of investments and the holding back the
Общая
investment
проблема
flow.
арктических регионов
So the main
заключается в
problem
том,
for the
что в
Arctic
силу
regions is that
сложных климатических условий,
due to harsh
сезонности ряда
climatic
производственных
conditions
процессов,
and seasonal
удаленности
nature
от
of many
основных рынков
activities,
сбыта,
long distances from the main markets,
большинство инвестиционных проектов
most investment
рискованные
projects are risky
и одновременно менее прибыльные,
and
чем
at the
такие
same
же
time they are
проекты
less profitable as similar
в
projects
неарктических регионах,
in
соответственно, в
non-Arctic
обычном режиме,
regions.
который проходит между странами. Правительство, конечно, может поощрять инвестиции в
Of course,
Арктике.
the government can encourage investments
И
into the
здесь
Arctic.
мы с моим соавтором думаем, что есть два принципиальных способа.
So we believe that there are two principal
Это,
ways.
сохраняя проектные риски, поднимать рентабельность.
So first is to increase the
То есть
profitability.
это налоговые таможенные льготы.
So maybe some customs and
И второе это
tax benefits.
не
And,
завышая искусственную рентабельность, снижать риски в
but the
Арктике.
second way is not
Это
to
у нас
increase the
геологическое изучение
profitability, but to
Арктики,
decrease
развитие
risks.
общедоступной
So
инфраструктуры,
this, which means
строительство
the
инфраструктуры,
geological prospecting,
цифровизация,
improved infrastructure,
рекламное и иное
digitalization.
позитивного имиджа региона. У нас в России уже по новым принятым законам, правилам, да, привлечения инвесторов мы уже видим, что применяется первый способ.
And
Это
given the
налоговые
current
льготы.
legislation, we see that what is being done in Russia now, it's the tax benefits.
Второй же способ, он более комплексный.
The second way is more multifaceted.
Конечно, более эффективный, может быть, для развития
and maybe more
региональных
effective for the regional economies.
И, конечно, когда мы сейчас, вот я прослушала наших коллег и в тот раз, и в этот раз,
So,
я
and
думаю,
having
что мы
heard
все
my
говорим
colleagues today and
в том
during
числе
the
о
previous
комплексном
meeting,
развитии территорий.
we are talking about the comprehensive development of territories.
С точки зрения принимающей стороны,
As for the recipients,
это может быть
beneficiaries,
разный уровень, это может быть федеральный, региональный,
so
муниципальные
it can
власти.
be federal, regional, and municipal authorities.
Инвестиции могут создавать проблемы для безопасности в широком понимании.
Investments can cause threats to security in a wide sense.
То есть это может быть экологический ущерб,
So it can be environmental damage
устойчивая деградация природной среды,
and continuing degradation of the environment.
Социальное расслоение между арктическими регионами,
Social stratification among the Arctic regions.
то есть если вдруг будет прибыльный проект, да, в случае
For example, if the project is profitable.
Разложение традиционного образа жизни северян,
Also degradation of the traditional lifestyle of indigenous
и
peoples.
вплоть до даже, возможно, угроза национальному суверенитету,
Up to the threats to the national sovereignty.
угроза информационной и военной безопасности.
And threats to the information and military safety.
Ну, это в случае иностранных инвестиций, о чем очень много
So
мы
this is the case
думаем,
of foreign investments,
когда продумываем программы
and so
инвестиционные на федеральном
we
уровне.
think about that a lot when we are reviewing certain proposals at the federal level.
Все эти вопросы, конечно же,
All
рассматриваются
these
не
issues
только правительствами, но и экспертами,
have been
бизнес-сообществами
considered
всех
not only
арктических
by the
государств.
government, but also the academia and
Это
business
мы можем
communities of
видеть
the Arctic
действительно
states.
по
And
открытым публикациям в интернете.
we can see that in open publications on
И
the internet.
в целом очень много
And
говорится, когда о
in
больших
general,
проектах, говорится о
when we are
национальном
talking
суверенитете, насколько
about
инвестиции
major projects, we are talking about, people talk about national sovereignty.
Но в целом, конечно, это проблемные вопросы. А если в позитивном ключе потенциал,
So
да,
these are the
мы
challenges,
видим
but
здесь
as
в первую очередь
for the potential,
социально-экономическое развитие
first of
региона,
all, it means social and economic development of the region,
которые, конечно, опираются на
which, of course,
арктические стратегии.
based on the Arctic strategies.
Также вырабатываются механизмы инвестиционной политики в каждом государстве.
Also, the mechanisms of investment policies are being worked out.
Меры инвестиционного стимулирования, сдерживания, административные механизмы, законодательные запреты, региональные, налоговые, таможенные, прочие льготы. Идет адресная поддержка
Taxation,
отдельных
customs
проектов
benefits,
и групп
some
инвесторов.
targeted
В том
support
числе
of certain
идет много
projects or groups
дискуссий
of
по
investors,
поддержке коренного
and
населения и их
there is
деятельности, по
great
развитию
discussion about
инфраструктуры,
the support of the indigenous
моральное
peoples,
стимулирование
on
в целом,
development of
да,
infrastructure, and
инвесторы к нам
on
пришли, то есть это поддержка имиджа.
moral stimulus of investors.
Фактические результаты, они
So what
пока
are the actual
достаточно
results?
единичные. Вот, и как раз вот в нашей
So
работе
they
мы хотели бы
are quite
отразить
few so far, and in
примеры
our
положительные,
work,
но их мало.
we would like to bring some positive examples, but they are
В
very
зависимости
few,
от того, что хотят, да, заказчики,
depending on the needs of the customers.
мы думаем, что
We think that
методика привлечения инвестиций может быть
the methods of attracting
одна
investments
для арктического региона в
can
целом
be
по всем странам.
universal for all
То
Arctic
есть,
countries.
конечно, изучение зарубежного опыта
Of course, studying the
чисто по
international
каким-то
experience
механизмам может быть очень интересной с точки
by
зрения
mechanisms,
политики,
their mechanisms can be
потому что
interesting in
инвестиции
the political terms,
очень, ну, как наблюдается,
because
эффективность
investments,
очень связаны с политическими факторами.
of course, are very closely connected to political factors.
Есть отдельные попытки выработки
There
международных
are
механизмов регулирования
some
инвестиций в Арктике.
certain efforts to
В последнее время
work
очень много
out
это
the
обсуждается
investment
в
policy in the
Арктическом
Arctic,
совете.
and
Был
so the Arctic
создан
Council
в 2015
has been
году
discussing this
Арктический
actively.
экономический
So
совет.
now we have the Arctic Economic
И
Council.
также арктическими вопросами занимается Всемирный экономический форум.
Also, the
Davos.
International Economic Forum in Davos also deals with Arctic issues.
Ну, а сейчас я перейду больше к таким примерам, да,
And now I am
которые,
going
можно
to
сказать,
move
наиболее
to some
интересные.
examples which are
Это у нас прежде
more
всего
interesting. First
Исландия.
of all,
Можно привести как
Iceland,
пример
we can
успешного
bring it
сотрудничества с
as
Китаем.
a case of successful cooperation with
Их
China,
сотрудничество с Китаем началось
and their
15
cooperation with
апреля
China
2013 года
started in
с подписанием
2013
соглашения о свободной
from the
торговле.
agreement on free trade.
Это первое такое соглашение такого
So
рода в
this is
Европе
a first agreement
с
of the kind
Китайской Народной
in Europe
Республикой.
with the People's Republic of China.
Функционирование данного соглашения обеспечивает совместное
So this
исландско-арктическое торгово-промышленное
agreement
исландско-арктическое. Вот что интересно.
ensures ensures the trade
В
between
китайско-исландских совместных
Iceland and China.
заявлениях
So the joint
заметно, что
Icelandic
очень
Chinese
много вопросов обсуждается. Здесь и
announcement
экология,
show that they
охрана
discuss a wide
окружающей
range of
среды, арктическое
questions,
судоходство.
environmental issues,
Все
Arctic
в глобальном
navigation
контексте.
in the global
Китай
context.
получает преференции в арктическом регионе
China
от
has the
сотрудничества с
preferences in
Исландией.
the Arctic region from the partnership with Iceland.
Исландия, в свою очередь,
And
увеличивает
Iceland,
свою
in
долю
its
в
turn,
китайском импорте
increases
энергоресурсов
its share in the
в
Chinese
связи
import
с
of
ростом
energy
значимости арктических
resources
морских проходов и добычи
due
исландских
to the
энергетических
growing importance of Icelandic passages and extraction of
Таким образом,
Icelandic
Исландия
mineral resources.
не входит и не собирается
So,
пока входить в Европейский Союз.
so Iceland is not has no intentions to join the
Следовательно,
European
в
Union.
сближении с Китаем Исландия более
So it's getting closer with
И
China
надо
is more
заметить то, что
profitable
Китай
for Iceland.
абсолютно
And
хорошо соблюдает полный суверенитет и суверенные права и законы Исландии.
China actually doesn't interfere into Icelandic
Вот. Что касается
sovereignty.
России, мы
As for
очень много
Russia,
говорим про сотрудничество
we
России и Китая в
have been
Арктике.
talking about Russian-Chinese
Весь
cooperation in
мир
the Arctic
следит
a lot,
за нашим
and
главным
the
стратегическим партнером Китаем, что дальше будет, да, по поводу
and
полярного
the whole
шельфового
world
пути
is watching
и вообще в
at
целом в
China
Арктике.
in terms regarding
Но на сегодняшний день наиболее успешный, только
Arctic
самый
Silk
такой большой проект,
Road.
это сотрудничество
But
Китая с
the largest
Новотек,
project so far is the China's
когда,
cooperation with
причем
Novotek.
китайские компании, Новотек продал 10% Арктика
So Novotek sold
компании
10% of Arctic SPG to a Chinese company.
Вот. И также еще одной китайской компании также продано было 10%. И еще 10%
And another 10% to another Chinese company and 10% to a Japanese company.
Это по Arctic SPG2. А в целом у нас в России, ну, Александр Николаевич очень хорошо все уже рассказал по преференциям. Да, у нас действительно
told
запустилась очень большая
about
программа
the
по
benefits in
привлечению
the Arctic.
инвесторов.
Yes, indeed, we have
Введены,
a vast program
введен
on attracting
статус
investments
резидента в
running.
Арктике, который можно получить. Есть
There
отдельный сайт
is a status of the
по
residents
инвестициям в российскую
of the
Арктику.
Arctic. There is
Всего у
a
нас
site on the internet on
поддержано
investments into
на
Russian
сегодняшний
Arctic.
день 6 инвестпроектов, 60
So 6
резидентов
projects have
зарегистрировано.
been supported so far. We
Вот,
have
но надо
60
подчеркнуть, что
residents
вот эти вот 6
registered.
инвестпроектов, они
And these
глобальные,
6
то есть они
investment
большие.
projects are global. They are
Это
major
морской
projects.
терминал, допустим.
So like sea terminal.
Это завод по производству
This is a plant
продукции из лосося и форели.
on
Опять же, в
processing
Мурманской области.
salmon
Это
products.
Инфраструктурная поддержка грузовой базы Северного морского пути.
This is the support of cargo processing infrastructure along the Northern Sea route.
Вот, ну и так далее. То есть это в основном большие
so
проекты,
on.
которые вы
So
можете
these
ознакомиться с ними
are
на сайте
major projects.
arctic-russia.ru.
So they are
И
on arctic-russia.ru
по-моему.
site.
Что касается, буквально 2 минуты, да, еще уделю
Just a couple of minutes.
отдельным проектам. Есть очень много направлений, которые
There are
прописаны
many directions which are
допустим, в отчете Европейской комиссии 2017 года
described in
по
the report
формированию
of the
инвестиционных
Arctic
проектов в
Commission
Арктике.
of 2017.
Здесь прописаны разные арктические страны, кто к чему стремится, например, Швеция
So they
и
have
Финляндия
the list
стремятся развивать
of the Arctic
горнодобывающую,
countries and their
сырьевую
aims, for
промышленность,
example.
химическую промышленность.
For example, Sweden
Много
aims at
говорится у них
developing
об
the
экологической
mining
устойчивости.
industry, and they are talking about a lot of environmental
Швеция, Финляндия
stability.
говорят о
Sweden and
биоэкономике.
Finland
То
are
есть, в
talking
принципе, можно
about
посмотреть
bioeconomy.
отчет
So
Европейской комиссии
you
2017
can
года по
check this
инвестиционным проектам в
European
Арктике
Commission
и понять,
2017 reports on Arctic
то, к
issues,
чему
and
уже
you
стремился
will
в этом
see
году. Ну, это достаточно.
their aims and tasks.
Здесь также есть и тема устойчивого туризма, например, это Гренландия,
Also,
Исландия,
the Greenland and
Норвегия,
Iceland
Швеция,
discuss
Финляндия.
the issues of
Про туризм мы
sustainable
очень много знаем,
tourism.
не могу про него не сказать.
So tourism, of course,
Драйвером для
is
предпринимательства в Арктике
very discussed topic,
очень много зависит от имиджа территории.
and
Кроме
it contributes a lot to the image of the territory.
форума,
Also,
где
there is
также
Arctic
определены основные цели для
protocol
инвесторов в Арктике. То
of
есть
the International
деятельность в
Economic
Арктике,
Forum.
постепенно
So the
обретает
investment activity in the Arctic
стратегическую
is developing its
Что касается
legal
по отдельным
framework,
странам, последнее, что скажу.
and
У
as
России,
for
получается,
individual
очень
countries,
надеемся на председательство России в Арктическом совете. Очень
yes,
много
we
задач
have great
подготовки
expectations
инфраструктуры
about
Северного
the
морского пути
Russian
в Арктике,
chairmanship in the Arctic Council.
как такого
First of all,
главного
in terms
по
of the
инфраструктурным
development of the
проектам
Northern
и
Sea route.
природным ресурсам. Да. И здесь мы ждем инвесторов. Созданы
So, of course, and here we are looking forward to have investors.
Но чтобы войти в Россию, все задаются вопросом, может ли отдельный регион России отдельно
But the question is,
по опыту Якутии могу сказать,
what
что
can you do to enter
проекты в
the Russian
Якутии
markets, and
последнее
can
время
investors sign
находили
agreements with certain regions?
Инвесторов на Восточном экономическом форуме, например.
So, for example, our republic recently have been finding investors at the Eastern Economic Forum. Yes, you can sign agreements directly.
тем, что нужно все равно связываться с Москвой.
But
для
anyway,
того,
you
чтобы
have
понять,
to
как
get
это
in
будет
touch with the
дальше.
federal
Кроме
center
того,
and
интересно, что у нас
to
в
see
России, например,
how it is going
есть
to work.
канадские инвесторы, да, канадские компании,
For
которые
example, in Russia, we have Canadian companies,
мы отметили.
Canadian investors.
Ну, первый и самый лидер, наверное, это Kinross Gold на Чукотке по добыче
For
золота.
example, Kinross Gold in
И
Chukotka,
у
gold
нас в
mining
Якутии
company.
Silver, правда, под русской, да, компанией АО «Прогноз» добывает серебро.
And here in Yakutia, we have
То есть здесь
Prognoz.
Silver Bay
Canadian
интересная схема.
Silver Bear, but
Это
they
наша,
act
по
through a
документации наша
Russian
российская компания
company,
«Прогноз».
Prognoz. So
Соответственно,
by
деньги
documents, it's a Russian company.
как бы считаются, ну, документально российскими, да, но при этом, конечно, мы помним, что это начиналось с Silver Bay, канадской компании.
But the money comes actually from a Canadian company, Silver Bear.
В целом, по остальным странам, если мы говорим про Канаду, то там инвесторы в Арктике
as for Canada,
приходят также. Часто говорим,
investors
буквально
come
минутку, да, последнее
to
скажу
the
про Канаду,
Arctic.
что у них нехватка инфраструктуры. Для того, чтобы прийти
So they
инвестору,
do lack infrastructure.
соответственно, получается здесь очень большие проблемы в зависимости от того, где находятся эти природные ресурсы. Да,
So, of course, for investors, it all depends on
Ну
whether
и
how far a
второй
certain
вопрос, который
deposit is
обсуждается
from
в Канаде, это национальная
infrastructure.
безопасность и суверенитет. Да.
As for national security and
Следовательно,
sovereignty,
инвестиции очень актуальная тема. Я думаю, это что все еще впереди.
well, investments is a very popular topic, and
климата, поэтому
Arctic is becoming very
думаю, что
popular
это
due to the climate change, and
перспективно в будущем. Спасибо.
and so it's very promising. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm sorry that you didn't hear us because you have exceeded your time frame by 2 times. So the next speaker is Mr. Rabukina, our new member of staff and entrepreneur.
Да. Здравствуйте, коллеги. Меня зовут Таисия Тарабукина. Я руководитель IT-компании и с января этого года являюсь сотрудником Северного форума.
Таисия, помедленнее. Перевод идет.
We are translating, so please don't be so fast. Our project, this is Taisia Tarabukina. We are working on the creation of developing books for children. Unfortunately, our modern children, they don't want to read, and reading is a very important skill. And our product has a special purpose, digital content. Forbes magazine has made a very large-scale material about our startup recently. And one of the priorities for our companies is to place at the regional marketplaces, and they will allow us to enlarge our marketing. But unfortunately, we don't have a large-scale trade site, and we need it as businessmen if we want to sell our products manufactured in our region. As a businesswoman, my major problem is, of course, logistics. Unfortunately, the remoteness doesn't allow us to deliver things in time and makes our products more expensive. So we see the solution here as a partnership with other companies from the Arctic regions, which will simplify our problems. Together with the Northern Forum, we are now drafting a proposal for our potential partners on distributing and branding of the existing products. Our remoteness, of course, gives us some advantages in internet trade. That is why we need this e-marketplace. We are now searching for some strategic partners that are ready for cooperation, and with the help of contacts and partnership of the Northern Forum, we will be able to inform people about our business mission. Now we are developing a unique project, Peoples of the Arctic, which is a series of books integrated with some digital content. It will be in several languages. We would like to boost the kids' interest to learning about their motherland. And with this partnership with some northern regions, we will be able to implement the project successfully and to have larger audience. This project, Peoples of the Arctic, is united by a common topic, and it will be dedicated to people, traditions, and nature, and it will allow to get a lot of information through playing, because it will have interactive component, and also thanks to the fact that it will be placed on the website, it will be accessible from some remote places without the physical book. It will be possible to get acquainted with our book and to listen it in several languages. We have a lot of plans for cooperating with the regions. Thank you very much. I will try to be brief. Thank you, Taisia. From the experience of an entrepreneur who has been working in a specific region for several years, we have heard a number of proposals, and now the administration of Bulun district and our agro-technological university asked me to show you a 5-minute video clip about how they see the future of Tiksi Arctic settlement, and then we will move on to some discussions and exchange of opinions.
А почему звука нет, коллеги?
Так. Звука нет?
Звука нет, не слышно.
There is no sound.
У меня есть. Так. Ты.
Звука нет.
No sound, unfortunately.
Странно. Так, ну, у меня очень хорошо идет, поэтому я даже удивился, где тут управляется этот звук.
Вы слышите звук?
Ну,
Я
даже
сам
звук...
слышу.
Yes, I can hear the sound myself, but unfortunately.
Звука ролика нету.
Владимир, вы сами слышите звук ролика?
Да, я сам слышу звук ролика очень
Хорошо.
хорошо.
Подождите секунду. Дмитрий, можете попробовать вы сами share свой экран и включить
So,
видео?
Dmitry, please try to share your screen and show the video clip with the sound.
Так, просто я не вижу здесь как.
Возможно, вам нужно отключить наушники свои. Попробуйте так.
Но по идее так не должно быть.
So they're trying to solve some technical problems with the sound.
Нет, у нас нет звука.
Федерального значения.
Нет, да?
У вас нет звука.
Все, появился. Включите сначала, пожалуйста, ролик. Появился звук.
Полигона НОЦ-Север.
Ну,
Поселок Тикси расположен
С самого
Тикси.
начала,
с самого начала.
в Евразии Крайнего Севера.
Все, спасибо.
И экран, поделитесь экраном.
Холмы и долины, пурги и полярное сияние. Миссия поселка.
Winds and northern lights. The development on the Northern Sea route. By the end of the 1950s, Tixi delivered coal and other cargoes to the entire coast. Favorable geopolitical position and the recognizability of the territory, not only in Russia, but also abroad, identify its functions as a place that can be used to provide transport and logistics services, then as an airport of federal significance, as a Russian and international center for scientific research of the Arctic, and a natural and resource base of the Eastern Arctic. The territory of development of alternative power supply and the brand of the Russian Arctic as a model polar settlement. And the effective implementation of these functions can be possible at implementing the integrated project. Tixi is the settlement of the future. So how do we see it? Our major directions for development are to improve social infrastructure, create and develop housing, organize water supply and water sewage, sustainable power supply, emergency services, beautification of streets, construction of sports grounds and leisure facilities and playgrounds, the development of seaport and modernization of Tixi Airport, using the capacities of the Northern Fleet, which will increase its transport accessibility, the establishment of international transport corridor, the development of cross-polar flights between Europe and America with transit through the main airport of Tixi, establishment of a testing ground, which will allow to increase the number of scientific and research expeditions, the testing of applied science research, to strengthen the international cooperation of Russia in the area of science, and to diverse the economy of the settlement, to create jobs and improve scientific base for the study of the Arctic. One of our slogans is all Arctic in one place. So we see it as a sort of neural network. All infrastructure will be very rational and compact. and as a unified architectural ensemble, and it will look like a neural network. There are a lot of winds in Tixi, as you know, and in order to preserve our past, our buildings will be decorated in traditional ways, but the architecture will bring together innovation and traditions, and it will be very attractive for both Russian and international tourists. We have to develop a unified design code for our settlement, develop modern systems of navigation, and we have to work out some regulations for advertisement billboards. We have to work on the digitalization and automation of different services in our settlement. And the attraction of investment will allow the settlement of Tixi to become a unique place of living for in extreme climatic conditions. So we aim to establish a very efficient settlement of international level in the extreme north. Well, this is a very motivating video, and let's hope that in some time we will see what has been shown in reality in our Arctic settlement. Well, dear friends, we have gone through all presentations, and we have time for discussions. And now it's an open microphone, an open floor. So if anybody wishes to share their opinions or to say something, then please. Okay, Dmitry Popov, Head of Innovation Development Unit at Yakut Agricultural University. I am sorry for a not very good recording of our video. It is basically quite a beautiful video. We will work on it. We wanted to show you the preparedness of the Russian Federation for cooperation in the areas that used to be very close, like Tixi. You understand that Tixi was a military settlement, but now we are ready to invite our federal and international partners. And the video that you saw is quite real. I think that it will be put in place before 2030. So, colleagues, let's discuss the following. When we talk about the Arctic, let's discuss not only Arctic, but also the subarctic. Northern Forum is a very good playground which brings together a lot of projects to think over international cooperation. So let's not limit ourselves to the Arctic. Subarctic is also an extreme area and unique climate. So also I would like to wish, as for the information that we heard from Ms. Maximova in terms of the Arctic Protocol and Arctic investment, maybe we should all together as representatives of different states working with circumpolar trends, maybe we should think about establishing the blue investment exchange, the stock exchange for the exchange of the Arctic quotas. some countries, they develop quotas, and others, they don't get sufficient quotas. Maybe we should think about a platform for exchange between these quotas, the profit from which would be allocated to the integrated development of these territories mentioned by Ms. Maximova. Thank you very much, Dmitry. Very interesting ideas. Any other experts who would like to share their ideas or comment on something? Of course, Dmitry noted that today we are talking only about the Arctic, and our whole event is dedicated to the Arctic, although the Northern Forum brings together the regions that are in the south, for example, Gangwon from the Republic of Korea. We have some business partners from Japan. Heilongjiang from China has been our active member, and all our Far Eastern regions, they are also members of the Northern Forum. So yes, we will take this opinion into account. Today we have launched this series of Zoom calls to get ready for the Russian chairmanship of the Arctic Council. So now we are more concentrated on the Arctic to understand the agenda for the coming 2 or 3 years. But subarctic and Arctic and the North, this is our topic, and we are not leaving this topic.
Прошу прощения. Можно высказать предложение по тематике.
You can offer some proposals on the topics for our next meetings. What could we discuss in March or in April, May? In your information letter, you saw a list of topics that can be discussed. What can we discuss? Halder?
Yeah, thank you, Vladimir. Well, thank you for, again, Christina, for organizing such an event, because I think such a discussion is highly appropriate and necessary. And I think a lot of the information, like from Dariana, is extremely relevant. And we have many, of course, different opinions, etc. But having a platform and collecting this information, and I think that's the next step, is to collect it. Because as I was mentioning, I think we really desperately, or the Arctic really desperately needs to have some sort of a business plan. And I think the Northern Forum could be this, let's say, non-political venue where it could be put forward and fostering such discussions. We have to pull in, of course, the Arctic Economic Council for closer collaboration. But I think the Northern Forum should be focusing on that. And I think the next discussion would be extremely interesting to take it to the level where Dariana was pointing, like, how can we then bring in, as I was pointing out in my presentation, how can we then bring in the interest from the observers, those that are interested in the Arctic? And I can tell you from my own experience that there are actors coming up to the scene. Davos was mentioned. There's also an interest, increasing interest in the Middle East, it seems. And countries like India and Singapore are showing increased interest. And we have to be smart and somehow get that interest also to the small and medium level that we are more discussing, not just the mega project. That's my 2 cents. Let's try to put in a conversation around such a topic. How do we get involved?
Да, спасибо, Халдор. Будет, конечно, очень интересно. Кто-то еще есть?
Yes, thank you, Haldar. It will be very interesting, of course. Are there any other experts who would like to say something?
Ирина, сможете пару слов сказать об этом? Ирина не слышит.
Николаевич, может, попросим, дадим слово Пицинго? Попробуем. Он здесь.
Вот просто я имени не вижу.
Иероглифами он был?
Да.
Нет.
Уважаемый господин Го с Океанологического института Китая, очень приятно вас снова видеть в нашей...
So we are glad to see you among us. So do you have any thoughts, any information to share with us?
Oh, thank you. Many thanks for the invitation from the executive director, Vladimir Vasilyev. I'm very lucky, very happy to see lots of friends, such as Alexander Biasov, Hardo, and Diana, and other friends. I do enjoy the wonderful presentation. In 2019, I traveled to the Yakutsk to part in the meeting of Northern Forum, and that is impressive. I'm impressed by the very good initiation to develop for the Arctic development. And today, I'm not expert on the economy development, and just to show my humble opinion on the Arctic development, Arctic business. So from my personal perspective, the Arctic business or Arctic development has some features or three very clear the features or characters. One is it must be environmental friendly. No doubt, everybody knows the Arctic environment is very unique. It's fragile and very hard to very hard to reserve once the disaster happens in Arctic. So so any development or any business should be environmental friendly. The second, I think it may be the high technology orientation. That's to see we should take in the first step, in the beginning, we should take much more consideration to use the high technology, such as AI, artificial intelligence. Why? One of shortcoming or disadvantages of Arctic development is the human resources. It's very rare. So human resources is a shortage of the Arctic business or development. So the AI maybe can play one active role for the sustainable development in the Arctic. I think. Also, the third is the Arctic business or development should be the international orientation. Why? Because the Arctic economy largely is the resources orientation. It has close connection with the international economy. So the resources develop. The resources, including oil and gas, is extracted in the Arctic, exported to the subarctic countries, and also some technology maybe is also from the international community. So it's not practical to close Arctic region from the international economy. So in the first station, in the beginning, or in the or any strategy or any the short-term plan for the Arctic business should be international orientation, international relevant. So in the fourth, I think what we should do is the outreach to popularize the information related to the Arctic business. To be honest, few people from the sub-Arctic countries know Arctic business or Arctic development. So last job we have to do to advertise, to publicize the information from Arctic regions. So it's I think we should work together hand in hand to publicize, to advertise the Arctic information, including Arctic business. So additionally, I agree substantially that the presentation by the Alexander Plyasov. In the first stage, the Arctic business and development depends on the government investment, or that is the need. We need Arctic development, need support from the government. But in the long term, it's not sustainable solely, only depends the government support. It should be business or international market orientation. That should say the government support and the international investment, including the private investment. It can coexist, support each other. Not so. But in the near future, it's not sustainable, not practical to bring more the private capital to the Arctic. So in the first stage, in the beginning, maybe the government investment from not only from the Russian government, but also from the other countries' government capital may based on the rule to initiate, to launch the business and development. It's my premature opinion. Thank you.
Да, спасибо большое, господин Го. Очень интересные.
Thank you, Mr. Go. Very interesting proposals. Indeed, in the Arctic, we should talk about Arctic not only for among ourselves. So we need to move in the southern direction, and we should talk more at global forums and to invite experts from any country. Last year, we initiated Youth Northern Forum, and we were glad that during the Model Northern Forum, we had young people from Indonesia, from Peru, from really southern countries, and this gave us an opportunity to share knowledge and information with Arctic with them, and how international organizations can work in this region. So here we see one of the coordinators of the Northern Youth Forum, Ekaterina Safronieva. Maybe she can add something. And I also would like to use this opportunity that in mid-April, we are going to have the General Assembly of the Northern Forum in Naryan Mar in Nenets Autonomous Okrug, and it will be a combined event. There will be offline events and also, but the majority of the participants will be online, and we will send you an invitation to listen to the information from the first hand and to learn about the activities of the Northern Forum and how we are preparing for the Russian chairmanship in the Arctic Council. So this is the information for our further meetings. So does anyone else would like to say something, or shall we draw some conclusions and then work out the topic of the next meeting in our communication? Good afternoon. Yes, I would like to propose the topic of innovations because both Mr. Pilyasov and Haldor were talking about innovations, and yes, it is very important to take into consideration the voice of the young people, especially in terms of innovations in entrepreneurship. And during the Russian chairmanship in the Arctic Council, we are planning to hold a startup forum. So in the coming meetings, we would like to discuss the topic of innovations and the international cooperation, for example, in the IT sphere. Thank you, Katya. So since you make this proposal, then you are going to be a presenter at our March meeting. So you have your team. So we would like to listen to a couple of presentations from young speakers. And so with the older generation, we will see what are your interests and how we can help you. Okay, good. So more comments, proposals. If no, then I'm giving the floor to Christina, and she is going to finalize today's meeting and what we have managed to do today and where we are going to move.
Хорошо. Значит, я переключаюсь на английский. I would like to thank all of you for your time today. Especially thank you to Vladimir and Northern Forum, and very special thank you to all wonderful speakers we had today. Great presentations and discussions, and a lot more to come. This is very exciting. Last year has been very challenging for all of us. We felt the importance in catching up, exchanging common challenges and ideas for the future, and to simply visit because we were missing all of these network opportunities, all of those conferences and discussions we had person to person. That is why this project and platform was created, and I'm very grateful that Northern Forum and Vladimir supported the project right away. As soon as we start talking about it, we thought it's going to be important for us to do something like this. With the agenda for today, we send out a list of proposed topics for the future meetings and discussions. And if you have interest and or ideas for any other topics that are not on this list, please let me or Vladimir know. I very much like Haldor's idea that Arctic needs an Arctic business plan. It's so true. Arctic does need an Arctic business plan. So maybe the next months, we will talk about the Arctic Council support, Russian chairmanship, and how do we get involved and how do we help to create that Arctic business plan to help not just create more projects, but to help the projects being supported from financial perspective. We will be working on the schedule and details for our March meeting, and we'll be in touch with you soon about this. With all of us being all over the world, today we had at least 4 countries represented at this meeting, more than 40 participants, which is great. We will be rotating our meeting time from month to month to accommodate as many interested as possible. So our next meeting will be scheduled around same time of a month, March 24th, 25th, but will be scheduled for a different time of the day. We will be sending more details about that soon. If you would like to speak during March meeting, please let me or Vladimir know. And in the chat box, I will put my email address and Vladimir email address for you to have. So if you would like to speak, to talk about the project, any ideas, or to share business opportunities, please let us know. Also, if you would like to be on the networking list for next meeting news, so if you would like to be aware of what's going on with this meeting, what are we planning to do for the future, let me know, and I will add you to the email addresses list, or Vladimir will add you to the list, so we can make sure you are always aware of the future plans for this project. Vladimir, would you like to add anything to the housekeeping?
Да, хорошо. Спасибо большое, Кристина.
So thank you, Christina. Yes, I do hope that in future we will be meeting and our circle is going to expand. So we had some 15 people in February, and now we have 3 times as much people, and probably we can expect like around 100 in March. So it would be very interesting to listen to the Chinese experience. Xi Jinping has recently said that China has conquered poverty, and it's very interesting how such a huge country succeeded like this. So we would like to listen to stories of success from our southern neighbors. So I'm addressing Mr. Go, maybe not yourself, but maybe you invite some good speaker. So we understand that Russia and China are partners, and development of the Arctic is virtually impossible without partners like you. So I'm very glad to see Karin Berensten from Norway, who had a very interesting presentation last time. So we are looking forward to your most active participation in our meetings. So we are open for the dialogue, for cooperation. So, and the more stakeholders and interested parties we have, the more effective our work will be. Thank you, dear friends. So that seems to be all. Thank you for your patience, for your useful proposals.
Great conversations, and looking forward to talking with you next month.
Да, ловлю лучи уходящего солнца.
So I'm catching the last rays of the setting sun.
It's still dark outside my window, but thank you all, and good night, and good afternoon, and good morning.
Да.
Thank you.
Да.
До друзья.
Спасибо.
Следующих встреч.
See you soon.
See you.
Thank you.